The disdain for Charlotte Flair isn't rooted in a lack of talent. No one can deny her athleticism, her presence, or her lineage. But that's exactly where the issue begins. Charlotte Flair isn't resented because she's a bad performer. She's resented because WWE has consistently forced the audience to accept her as the centerpiece of the women's division, whether they wanted it or not. Her path to the top hasn't felt earned. It's felt inevitable, and after more than a decade of it, fans have stopped seeing her as a competitor and started seeing her as a symbol of everything wrong with WWE's booking philosophy. It's not jealousy, it's exhaustion. Charlotte's first Royal Rumble win in 2020 was already controversial. It was tone-deaf booking at a time when so many other women were on the rise. Shayna Baszler had dominated in NXT and tore through the Rumble like a monster. All the signs pointed to her being crowned the new unstoppable force. But WWE, in its usual fashion, pivoted back to safety. Charlotte won, again. And instead of choosing a high-profile match on the grandest stage of them all, she decided to go after the NXT Championship, a move that not only baffled fans but damaged the very brand it was supposed to elevate. Her victory over Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania 36 didn't create a new star. It crushed one. Ripley's momentum never fully recovered until years later, and even then, she had to claw her way out from under the shadow Charlotte left behind. The Royal Rumble is supposed to be a moment of rebirth, a platform to catapult new stars to the main event. Instead, it became another trophy on Charlotte's mantle, another statistic to pad her legacy. And the same story repeated itself when she returned again and again from injury or hiatus, only to be immediately slotted back into the title picture. Every time Charlotte was gone, the division breathed. It allowed other women like Bayley, Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair, or Becky Lynch to explore long-term storylines and character arcs. But the second Charlotte returned, everything reset. The division stopped revolving around fresh dynamics and pivoted once more around her gravitational pull. That kind of repetitive hierarchy killed momentum for anyone not named Flair. Her repeated title wins are perhaps the most glaring source of resentment. 16 recognized reigns, many of which felt completely hollow, rushed, or designed solely to inflate her resume to match or surpass her father's legacy. What should have been a storied climb filled with iconic feuds became a checklist. Title wins, followed by short transitional reigns, followed by more wins. The championship stopped meaning anything when she held them. They were props, used not to tell a story or reflect a rivalry, but to validate her placement as the top of the division, regardless of whether the audience cared. It's not even about her being heel or babyface. Charlotte's alignment doesn't matter anymore because the crowd reaction is always the same: apathy or rejection. When she's booked as a heel, she doesn't feel like a cunning villain. She feels like management's favorite pet, gleefully toying with people she knows the company won't let beat her clean. When she's booked as a face, the disconnect grows even stronger. No one buys Charlotte as the underdog or as someone who needs to prove herself. Every story arc that paints her as someone overcoming adversity feels dishonest. The adversity isn't real, and the stakes never last long. WWE's refusal to let her lose in meaningful ways has stripped her of any real character growth. When Asuka's legendary undefeated streak came to an end at WrestleMania 34, it was Charlotte who broke it. And while the match was good, the decision was tone-deaf. Asuka was the hottest women's act in WWE, built over years of dominance in NXT and then SmackDown. That streak wasn't just a gimmick, it was the foundation of her mystique. But WWE sacrificed it on the altar of Charlotte's myth-making. It wasn't to elevate a new talent. It was to enhance the legacy of someone who had already been champion multiple times. And the aftermath of that decision was telling. Asuka floundered, and Charlotte moved on, barely acknowledging the weight of the moment she was given. Time and again, Charlotte's opponents are forced to sell the idea that she's the mountain to climb, the final boss of the division. But the audience stopped buying that long ago. Not because she isn't credible, but because credibility needs resistance. It needs stakes, and Charlotte never has to struggle. Her obstacles are brief, her losses are rare, and her returns always lead straight to gold. Compare that to the way the four horsewomen rose together. Sasha had to scratch and claw for everything. Bayley had to reinvent herself as a heel to be taken seriously. Becky had to organically catch fire with the crowd before being pushed. Charlotte never needed to do any of that. She was given the keys from day one. Even outside kayfabe, the optics are frustrating. Whenever Charlotte is gone, WWE does everything in its power to maintain interest in the division. But when she's back, the promotion becomes lazy. Instead of investing in new stories or characters, they default to Flair versus whoever. It's uninspired booking that stifles creativity and leaves the fans feeling robbed of variety. You could name almost any major female star of the last decade, and chances are Charlotte has beaten them, often in unearned fashion, with minimal build. That pattern kills anticipation, it kills narrative tension, and it kills trust in the company's willingness to truly elevate anyone else. There's also the issue of how WWE centers its branding around her. Promotional material, interviews, legacy packages, they all push the same narrative. Charlotte Flair is the greatest women's wrestler of all time. But greatness isn't declared, it's felt. It's earned through storytelling, not tally marks. WWE's obsession with crowning her queen has overshadowed the organic rise of women like Bianca Belair, who actually connected with fans in ways Charlotte never could. Belair's journey was emotional. It resonated. When she won the Rumble and went on to headline Wrestlemania 37, the crowd felt every moment. Charlotte's second Rumble win didn't feel like that. It felt like déjà vu. The constant returns only worsen the perception. She'll vanish for months, sometimes due to injury or personal reasons, and then come back into a championship match as if nothing changed. No rebuilding phase, no earning her spot, just a coronation waiting to happen. That kind of booking tells fans that their investment in the week-to-week product doesn't matter, that wins and losses don't matter, that nothing anyone else does can override management's chosen one. It's telling that whenever Charlotte is out of the picture, the women's division flourishes with energy. Feuds like Becky versus Bianca, Bayley's Damage Cutterell saga, or Rhea Ripley's dominance have all felt fresh because they weren't orbiting Charlotte. There's freedom in her absence, but her presence always brings things back to the same cycle. Title match, title win, short feud, disappearance, rinse, repeat. Her character has also been one-dimensional for years. While others evolved, Charlotte remained static. Sasha explored her ego and vulnerability. Bayley became a delusional narcissist. Becky went from anti-authority rebel to cynical veteran. Charlotte has always just been the queen. No emotional arcs, no real development. Just the same regality, the same superiority complex, and the same booking. Fans crave depth, and Charlotte's presentation lacks it. The crown she wears became a barrier to growth, not a symbol of power. Even the way WWE uses commentary and production to frame her hurts her image. Matches are called as if she's already legendary, with every chop or moonsault treated like a generational moment. That kind of manufactured reverence feels disconnected from reality. Fans don't like being told who to worship. They like discovering greatness for themselves. With Charlotte, that discovery was never allowed. WWE pre-packaged her legend and demanded you accept it. And then there's the Royal Rumble 2024 situation. When she returned as a surprise entrant, again, after months away, the live crowd's reaction was ice cold. Not because they didn't know who she was, but because they did. The pop wasn't there. The electricity was missing. She eliminated a series of rising stars to make it to the final four. There's a reason why fans have rallied behind women like Liv Morgan, or Piper Niven, or Shotzi, despite them not having Charlotte's pedigree. It's because those women feel real. Their struggles feel authentic. Their wins matter because they're rare and fought for. Charlotte's wins feel administrative, like WWE checking a box. She doesn't need to climb the mountain because she owns the map. And that disconnect between effort and reward is what drives the backlash. There's also a generational gap in perception. Fans who grew up with the women's revolution wanted change. They wanted long-term storytelling, multiple women in top spots, and believable mid-card feuds. But Charlotte's era of dominance kept narrowing the lens. Everything returned to her. Even when the division grew, she stood in the center like a monument WWE refused to move around. And the longer that lasted, the more resentment built. Every championship she wins is met with groans, not cheers. Every return is met with suspicion, not excitement. Not because Charlotte Flair isn't capable, but because WWE has never let her prove she needs to be. They gave her the mountaintop and never asked her to climb, and the fans noticed. What makes the prospect of Charlotte Flair winning at WrestleMania 41 feel so unbearable to fans isn't just the tired repetition of her victories, it's the symbolism of what that win would represent. WrestleMania is supposed to be the culmination of long-term storytelling, the payoff for emotionally charged arcs, the crowning of new stars, or the final triumphs of fan favorites who earned their moment through grit and resilience. Charlotte winning once again, especially on a stage like WrestleMania 41, doesn't feel like a story peaking. It feels like a corporation stamping its seal of approval on a legacy it's forced the audience to accept whether they wanted it or not. This isn't about discrediting her in-ring skills. Everyone agrees Charlotte is elite between the ropes. Her athleticism is world-class, and her performances are often technically sound. But wrestling has never just been about execution. It's about connection. It's about journey. It's about making the audience feel something. And for years, Charlotte has lacked that connection, because the audience audience isn't being invited along for the ride. They're being told where it ends before the story even starts. That's why the reaction to her WrestleMania involvement this year has been so ice cold. No one feels like they're watching a path unfold. They feel like they're being dragged toward a conclusion WWE already wrote. Her placement on the WrestleMania 41 card, once again in a title match or marquee bout, feels like another example of WWE choosing familiarity over creativity. They have a stacked women's division, brimming with stars who have built themselves up organically, whose moments would mean something. But the Charlotte Flair system operates outside meritocracy. She doesn't need wins on Raw or SmackDown. She doesn't need to stay hot with the crowd. She doesn't need to cut compelling promos or rework her character.